it happens all the time, man.
Yeah. All right, we're rolling, huh?
We're rolling. This is it. There's no turning back now.
All right, how's it going, Justin?
I can't complain. We're making it through the winter. We're almost seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I can't wait for summer to get here. Super Bowl tomorrow.
Yeah, we've had a pretty cold winter here in Wisconsin, but it's nothing compared to what you get. You're still you get the really cold Arctic Canadian winters.
Oh, no, not it's not as bad now. Like the last, I know when we talked the other day, it's not as bad. But when we do get it now, it's bad. But for the most part, it's good now, right? It's just I hate winter because I've been spoiled the last couple of years with the nice temperatures, right?
Oh, where'd you live before that?
Oh no, I've always lived here. It's just that it's changed. The weather's changed so much. Our winters are like nothing now. So
Oh
when we
yeah,
do,
yeah,
so when
you're
we
right.
do get cold, it's cold. That's-
Yeah, our last two winters were very mild and warm too. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Yep, not this one though. It's been cold and dry. We didn't get any snow.
Oh, you can keep that. So before we jump into this, let's get to know you a little bit, who you are, your YouTube channel, and all
All
that
right.
fun stuff.
Yeah, so my channel name is Matty Adams. My name is actually Matt Brahm. I am an Army veteran and I work in IT now, so I do kind of networking stuff. I push down software updates and kind of manage software and things like that for my company. Um, and then just now that I have more free time and I'm older, I don't have any kids, so I was like, hey, let's start a YouTube channel. And kind of like when you and I were talking on the side, and I asked you, what's your interest in outer space? Mine is very similar. I just was always kind of a nerd. I really liked outer space in high school. Kind of grew up watching, like National Geographic and Animal Planet and Neil deGrasse Tyson and documentaries and things like that. And I always did really well in science in school. So I'm not like a physicist by trade or anything, but it's just something I like doing the research papers and I like kind of studying a topic and just putting the information out there for people and, trying to make the internet, I guess, a little bit better of a place because, there's some pretty bad content out there. So,
What, like a lot of my guests that I'll talk to, and that's one of the things that we talk about is like the misleading information. Even like, I'll use workouts, for example, and nutrition, like the amount of misleading stuff out there is beyond. And unfortunately, like the ones that are trying to learn it are buying into this stuff on social media where, oh, I can lose this many pounds in this many days, or I can look like this guy if I take creatine, or you know what I
mhm.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the internet, it's always the easy stuff, because it's a 60 seconds short and they always make things look really, really easy and really quick. And there's always a quick fix. But yeah, like life is never really like that, right? Like
No,
everything good actually takes work. Hmm.
a lot of work. And
Yeah.
even like if you're looking at someone's like, well, I've only done this for 10 weeks and I look like this, I say they're probably on a substance,
Hmm.
guaranteed, to
Yeah.
be able to get that kind of physique and that amount of time, even like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're doing probably a lot more things than what they're telling you. Like, oh, here's a template of my diet.
Well, so I
Yes,
saw you were a professional, what, power lifter or like
yes, yeah,
semi-pro?
yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you do?
I don't do nothing now. I
Yeah.
uh, I blew my back out at a very young age doing it. So,
Oh, yeah.
but powerlifting's basically squat, bench, and deadlift
Yeah.
all in one day.
Okay. And then it's like the average of the three scores?
Yeah, your best of three. Like, so your squat, you'll have three attempts to do your maximum lift, right?
Okay.
So you start off with like 60%, then maybe move to 70, 75%, then 90 to 100, or 70 to
Mhm.
80, or 90 to 100 on your third. And then they take that from each lift and add it together for a total.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have my days where I miss it. And then like today, I'm feeling a little bit of pain in my back. And it's like, maybe I
I
don't miss it. now,
I got a
now I
lot
know
of
why.
I got a lot of injuries in the army and stuff too. I was always one of those. I was always kind of smaller, and so I had to sort of push myself a lot harder than people, and I probably pushed myself through too many injuries without actually having doctors check them out, and just kind of push myself through them. And yeah, my body's paying the price now, and I
Well,
definitely can't work out like I used to, which sucks.
and I
But
mean, the
yeah.
military's not an easy job neither. Like if people sign up, no, it's going to be a breeze. No, no.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot
so
of
what
rucks
exactly
set.
did you do in the military? What was your trade?
So I worked with Patriot missiles actually. I was a Patriot missile operator and maintainer, which you know, I don't know if you follow, what's going on in Israel and stuff, but it's a very important. It's a surface to air missile system.
Okay.
So generally, it's used to shoot down Scuds and things like that. So it's a surface launched missile that is used to take out other missiles. So it's a defensive system.
Don't they got them in Ukraine too now?
Yep, probably.
Yes, because I
If I
seen
was
something
still
like
in,
that. They
if I
like,
was still in, there's a good chance I would be like in Poland or somewhere around there, probably, if I had to just throw a wild guess.
oh
Yep.
wow, that's crazy.
So, yeah, and it's
So,
evolving now with all the drones and stuff, because a Patriot missile would not be very effective against drones.
mhm.
It wouldn't be cost effective at all because the missiles are way too expensive. So they're experimenting now with lasers and anti-drone shotguns, and that's a really interesting evolution to watch.
It is scary the way technology has changed.
Yeah.
Like we have drones now in the military. Like you know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
don't need the big airplanes flying over with the spy gear on because you can just send a drone and
Oh yeah. Well, and it's crazy too. If you ever watch like any of those post-apocalyptic movies and stuff, there's always drones kind of flying around the wasteland, and so it has that kind of ominous feel to it, right? Like, could you imagine being in luckily for us, we don't live in countries that are going through wars and stuff. But I mean, could you imagine how crazy that would be, just seeing drones zipping around and you know,
did you like even with AI? Did you ever watch the movie with Will Smith in it, I, Robot?
Mhm.
That's where we're heading.
Kind of, yeah.
That like all the signs are there for it.
Yeah, and I'm helping them because I use ChatGPT like all the time.
How do you like that app? I was looking at that and I was thinking about
It's
trying it out.
it's good and it's bad. It is wrong sometimes, and you do have to be able to push back against it. Because basically, really, it's not an actual. I wouldn't call it like, it's not a full blown like general intelligence. It's basically just scraping the web for what it thinks are the best answers, and then kind of combining them and stuff. So
Gotcha.
specifically, like for my job in IT, it gives me a lot of wrong answers because everything's updating so fast. So, when I'm Google searching, say, articles for work, I'm looking for things oftentimes, I'll use the Google advanced search feature and search for articles that were within the last month or within the last year usually. Just because it's the timeliness of it is so relevant, and ChatGPT is not updated fast enough for that. So for like
Gotcha.
really current or really like say topics that are changing and evolving over time quickly, it's not the best. Um, and then like you said, unfortunately, there's like a mixture of information on the internet. I mean, you have like a really big chunk of people out there who like actually think that the earth is flat and things like that, and I
What
thought it was
you
like a
you you
troll.
you didn't know that the Earth isn't flat?
I maybe it is. I don't know.
Nah, I'm just being smart. I'm just being funny.
I mean, yeah, it's wild though, like you said. And so, and it's funny, right? Because half the reason I kind of started a science page is I was like, well, what's something that's like the farthest away from politics? I don't want to have to worry about copyright. I don't want to have to worry about demonetization. What's something that's like sort of conflict free, right? And, I was thinking like outer space, and then so immediately, obviously, when I first started my page, I kind of joined all these different, and I was already part of some of them, but I joined all these different kind of science groups on Facebook, and I'd go in there and chat with people or post my videos or things like that. Um, and man, you see two different things on science pages. A lot of times it's religious and non-religious people arguing, and then it's flat earthers versus the globe people, and it's like, and it's so funny because it's like, I thought science was one of the disciplines that's sort of like mature enough to maybe circumvent politics a little bit, but it's like, nope, I guess
No,
nothing can, right?
they even got it in space.
Hmm. Well, so
So
that's an interesting one, right? So you know how we have like this treaty um that we're not going to have war in outer space and stuff.
I'm not going to have war yet. Don't
hmm
worry, it's coming.
Exactly. I feel like we kind of have those treaties because it's the same thing with Antarctica, right? But it's only because it's completely uninhabitable. Like I
Mhm.
guarantee you, if all the ice started melting in Antarctica and it actually becomes habitable, all that this is just for science stuff would go right out the window, and countries would start trying to take their chunks of it and stuff.
Yeah, oh, 100% they would. 100%
hmm
they would.
Yeah.
So, like, when did you start your YouTube channel? Did you say?
It was about 8 months ago now. So,
Okay.
and really, like I said, I work full time. It kind of just started as a hobby. Um, and I've been putting more and more time into it now. I'd say I probably put like, 15 hours a week into it along with like my full time job and all that stuff. So,
Well, even though it's a hobby, I find you start to see those followers. It's like, hey, people are digging my stuff and I'll put a little
hmm
bit more time in it.
Yep.
Then it's like, oh, I got another 100 followers. I'll put a little bit more time in it. And now it's like, oh my God, I can't let my audience down. Now it becomes your job, right?
Yeah. And there's definitely those ups and downs to it, right? Like, and, the opposite is say you've had a couple of videos do really well and then you have a video and it just kind of bombs, right?
Yeah.
And then that can really be like a demotivator, but then all of a sudden you post another good video and it's like nice. My biggest problem I find, because I really like the graphs and the analytics and all that stuff, so I'll find myself staring at that creator studio and like watching the real time way too much, and I'm like, dude, I gotta, I'm like, just set it down, look at it tomorrow. If you're spending this much time staring at it, you should just probably go and start researching your next video or whatever, but
And you're absolutely right. And that's what I do now. Like,
Mhm.
I don't, yes, I push it, try to get it out. I try to post 3 times a day, but I'm looking at it as if, okay, it will happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but I can do other things to promote it,
Yeah.
right? Maybe make an email list or,
Mhm.
but it's like everything on the internet now is money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Have a
Yeah, it's crazy.
professional,
And I don't, so how old are you?
37.
Okay, yeah, I'm 35. So, we both sort of grew up when the internet was not a real place, really, right? Like
Yep.
your parents taught you, you don't tell people who you really are online. You like a lot, you didn't like in the AOL days and things like
Yep.
that. I don't know if you ever used America
No,
Online,
I know what
but
you're talking about. Yeah, the chat lines and everything. Yeah.
yeah, you generally like people would just make up names. I mean, half the people you're talking to, that even though they say they're a 35-year-old woman, you're like, this is probably some 40-year-old guy that
Yeah.
I'm talking to. And it's like, but then slowly the internet has sort of become like a real place now where like your actual identity is attached to it. The things that you say have real consequences now.
Everything, like even every app you fill out, they want to know where you live. Why do you want to know where I live?
Yeah.
Why? Why? What's the point? What's
They want your,
behind that you need
they
to
want your
know?
data. They want to know, okay, well, this age group from this area, they have these certain types of habits. They watch this, they go shopping here. And people who watch this and go shopping here are also likely to go shopping here. So we can market that product to them as well. That's probably mostly what it's for.
And you're absolutely right. And it drives me crazy though, because like it's a good thing in a way, and it's a really bad thing in a way, like
hmm
because there's so much BS on it that it's it like when Facebook. Let me rephrase that. When social media came out,
hmm
it was like it was this great thing, and it was meant to do that, connect people from your high school, and then all of a
hmm
sudden it's just this great big monster
Yeah.
platform, like, and it's become so toxic.
hmm Yeah, and
Like
the
you
the
can't.
history of Facebook is it actually started out, it was funded by the US government. And it was an internal social media app for, I believe, just Harvard University. And then eventually they rolled it out to all the Ivy League schools and then eventually to like all colleges and then eventually everywhere. So, when I graduated high school in 2006 and when I went to college the first time before I dropped out, um, that was when I got Facebook because at the time it was just a way to find study groups. It was a way to find if there were like fraternity parties, if there were just sort of things that were going on campus.
Yeah.
And then when I was deployed, it was a godsend because, I thought about the fact that, the people who were, and, lucky for me, I went to the United Arab Emirates. I wasn't in like a crazy combat zone or anything. Um, but, I was like, man, I was able to use Facebook. And at the time, that was when Magic Jack came out. You remember that?
No, I don't remember.
It
What was
was
that about?
before like Skype was really big and before IP phones were like a thing. It was like an actual telephone that you plugged into your USB port on your computer. But that
Okay.
way you didn't have to pay long distance and stuff. So it was like, and I just remember like how amazing that was to me that, people before me used to have to buy calling cards and people way before that, you had to like send letters home. You know, can you imagine like writing, being a wife of a soldier who's deployed and, you have to wait like 3 weeks or a month between letters and maybe you just don't get one day, so
Yeah,
I felt so
no,
blessed with like having the internet on a deployment, I was like, that's
and
cool.
that's what I say. It's a blessing in one way, and it's a disaster in another way. I was watching a thing on YouTube today. When life was simpler back in 1998.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
was just cool because they still had the somewhat of the dial-up internet going, and the kids were playing out in the yard, and
Hmm.
now it's just everyone has to have a cell phone. It's not even a computer or a tablet; it's a cell phone they have to have.
Hmm.
Like, and at any age,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And
it's
sorry, I got a phone call here. I'm just turning my phone off.
no,
Um,
and no one watches TV anymore, like an actual television station, because everything's YouTube.
yeah.
You know,
Most people watch things on their phones, actually.
yeah, yeah, or
Hmm.
like they'll get a what is it, like a streaming thing for their TV, but it doesn't show anything. It's just basically movies and
Hmm.
TikToks and YouTubes and everything else, and it's like we need to stay away from that because we don't need that. Like, what happened going sitting on your computer for a couple hours, and
Hmm.
but now it's like sitting on my phone for the better part of the day.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I work in IT. I can't get away from it.
Mhm.
I mean, I have to have like these different like authenticator apps on my phone and stuff. Like I couldn't get rid of a smartphone if I wanted to. I mean, I guess technically I could get like security keys and stuff but yeah, like so much of our lives are tied to it. I mean, can you imagine not having a banking app and stuff like that now? And like I said, and we grew up where you didn't
We
have
didn't
one,
have
like
that.
like my
That was
parents
an.
balanced their checkbook and when you spent something, you wrote it down in your checkbook and you did the math and then you checked the ATM maybe.
Could you imagine having a mobile app like that we got today for banking
Mhm.
when the Nikon phones or whatever they all came out? Could you
Oh, like the
imagine trying to
Nokias.
do? Yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and trying to do a bank transfer on a phone back then
Hmm.
right away. Can't do that. The hackers will get my. You know what I mean? It'd be so
Hmm.
wrong and everything else. And I think we've came to the point that we're actually nothing. We don't have to do nothing hardly anymore.
Hmm.
Like they're limiting everything that we have to do as a human because your phone, AI, everything's doing it for you.
Well, I remember seeing something a little while ago, like an article or something that said humans have actually entered a new stage of evolution. And they were arguing that we're kind of like androids, right?
Mhm.
Because although Neuralink and things like that don't like truly exist in a full state yet, but everybody walks around with a computer essentially attached to their hand. And so we are, like I said, if you were to take somebody from 40 years ago or even 20 or 30 years ago and just throw them into today, they would be so confused. They would be like, why are you, like you said, why are you guys on the internet all the time? Like, what is this? This is just, isn't that like eBay? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, just crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy how much. And I think obviously with COVID, like ever since COVID, it just,
Oh, that's when the band-aids on the world just exploded off everything.
yeah, it
Whether
was
it was
already almost there. Mhm.
yeah, whether it was with education, with healthcare, politics, job related stuff, it let go.
Yeah.
Because I mean, before COVID, like podcasting wasn't a really big thing, right? Like it was
Mhm.
just, and then once COVID hit, everyone got bored, and then everyone had a podcast show
Oh yeah, I'm sure
or a
if you
YouTube channel.
if you were to look at like the total number of creators on YouTube and just streaming platforms in general, I guarantee you that during COVID it was like a huge spike probably, and probably more new creators than ever probably entered the market then, if I had to guess.
And it's crazy now because it's people's jobs now.
Mhm.
It's their jobs to go online and make people laugh.
Yep. Well,
Follow this video for more funny, like and subscribe for this
Mhm.
and a lot of it's not that funny, but I mean, okay. And again, it goes back to misleading information as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and one of the sad things, unfortunately, about running your page is like, it's like, do I want to use like marketing tactics that I know work, but maybe you kind of consider it to be somewhat in a moral gray area, or you find it to be a little, like, do I want to be that clickbaity person, or do I want to just work
Yes.
really hard on my channel and try to build it the right way? But that takes a lot longer. And,
You know what? I look at it now as I'm not being that clickbait guy just to have you click on something that's totally irrelevant to what you're clicking on because
Mhm.
I just want to get that watch time.
Oh, yeah. No, I
I don't
noticed a
care.
lot of, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't care how long it takes. Um, I always tell people everyone's entitled to their opinion about whatever, like my channel, my podcast, your channel. If they don't like it, they don't like it. They expressed it. Okay, move on. You're not hurting my feelings by any means, but just
Yeah.
move on, right?
Well, and I think
I'm
in
one
a way,
person.
that's sort of the great thing about this whole like the decentralized TV and stuff, right? Because you get a lot more of, whereas, say 20 years ago, the only entertainment that was available was mostly out of Hollywood. And almost every movie was filmed in what, New York City or
Yep.
LA or Chicago, right? It's very rare that movies were like filmed in the Midwest or, God forbid, like Canada or, anywhere else. It was always these sort of same locations. And then, every movie you watch, it would be this big high school in California that's all
Yeah.
super nice and everyone's all clicky and they have these nice Art Deco houses. And it's like, well, most people, they don't live like that. And, so it's kind of cool now because like you said, I can make content, say, just about the Great Lakes and make something that really pertains to like people in the Midwest and maybe not really care if it's that interesting to everyone else in the world, but we
Mhm.
can sort of cater to like these smaller niches now.
Yep.
And it's not, just like your local news station anymore. It's,
No,
you can be like, oh,
and
that's cool.
that's
This guy's from Wisconsin, or,
yeah, no, and that's why I started this style of podcasting because it doesn't just cover one subject, it's every subject. Yes, I have to, it's beneficial for me because now I got to go out and try to do some research on this and then this and then this and then, we were talking like I'm reading philosophy books now because I'm going to have a philosopher on soon. So I want to be able to be educated, to be able to carry a conversation and understand what he's talking about. And
Mhm.
you know what? Even if out of 10 people and I picked 2 people up that really liked it and learned something, well, then I got 2 followers.
Mhm.
That's great for me. It'd be great if I had 10 the whole 10 people listen, but you know what? I'm cool 1 or 2 followers too.
Well, and I think, I'm going to kind of plug one of your last videos, but because I was watching through your videos and I really like that Ricardo guy that you interviewed. Um, and he had a good point. He was like, like the purpose and the reason why you're doing things does matter. Um, so he's like, for example, you see a lot of people kind of get promoted and get more and more rich, but they're still sort of miserable because like maybe their goal was just money. And if your goal is money, like you're probably never going to actually be happy. And that's not to say that making money is bad, but if your goal is to educate people or to change the world or something like more grandiose, I guess, then you're probably going to be more likely like you're going to be okay if the money doesn't start coming right away because it's like, hey, maybe I'm like, my channel's not monetized yet, right? But I'm like, but when I go and look at things, I'm like, this started out as a little hobby and I have, 1,000 different people just watch this video and listen to all this different stuff that I have to say about outer space. And that's just really cool. And, they could have been watching Skibbity Toilet or something, but.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. Speaking of outer space,
Mhm.
I was watching a video the other day about the first moon landing. What's your thoughts on it? Do you think they actually landed there, or do you think it was just staged?
I think they did. But it's so hard because like the photo quality back then was terrible, you
Yeah.
know? So like if you were gonna fake it, it wouldn't be too hard to because it's not like everything was all HD and stuff. Now,
Did you watch the video after they landed and they come home and everything?
yes.
I don't know about you, but if that was me and I just landed on the moon, like made it back safe and everything, I'd be jumping for joy. But it looks like they were scared to blink almost. Like there was no emotion in their body or nothing.
Yeah, I heard some weird stuff too about, I forget the name of the astronaut that had to stay on the shuttle in orbit because like three of the astronauts went down in the capsule, right? But then one astronaut had to stay in the Apollo orbiter and basically just orbit around the moon and wait for them, right? And then to be there to pick them up and take them back home. And he never got to step down there. And I remember an interview with him, and unless I forget his name, I think it was the fourth astronaut, right? And nobody really knows his name. But, he was talking about how like eerie and dark the dark side of the moon was, and like because once he got to the back side of the moon, there's all of his communications cut off, and it was just, and then I don't know, there's a million conspiracy theories about that he saw aliens and things like that too, but I'm not gonna get all
Yeah,
into
no,
that.
no, it's all good. It's all good. You know what? There's
Yeah,
a reason why I always say if they did land on the moon, there's a reason why they're not going back to the moon.
yeah, um,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, maybe something scared him off. I mean,
exactly. Like, and I say that it's been put in movies to kind of brace us for eventually, because it is eventually going to happen. Do I believe that there is life out there? I
mm,
never did before, but the more I'm researching it, because again, it's clickbait too.
mm,
Oh well, I'll just make this story up and whatever, blah blah blah. But
mm.
you really got to dive into it, and
No,
and
and
I
I mean, it
think
is fascinating how, like actual real like Air Force pilots who were like majors and high ranking officers are coming out and saying that they saw really weird stuff. Now, I like to be kind of a fence sitter sometimes, or I guess I like to look at both sides and I like to argue both sides. And oftentimes you'll find that either side can be plausible, right? Um, but okay, so when you're in the military, right? Even
mhm,
like I had a secret security clearance, right? I didn't have a top secret, but there's like, there's classified secret, top secret, and then you can have like top secret plus a bunch of other stuff, right? But even when I had a secret security clearance, just because I have a secret security clearance and someone who doesn't work in Patriot has a secret clearance, I'm still not supposed to just tell them classified stuff about Patriot. So one of the things about the military and the government in itself, at least the American, and I would imagine most militaries and governments function like this, is that it's very compartmentalized. So nobody really knows the entire picture of what's going on, kind of, except for the people on the very top and the Pentagon and the generals and things like that, right? And I think it's designed like that for a reason. Um, but that being said, it's quite possible that the US or the US and Britain, or, in conjunction with our allies, or SpaceX or Raytheon or Lockheed Martin, right? Name a big American company. It's quite possible that they are working on very advanced um, stuff that they don't want to tell the public about yet, right? And there is actually a history and a precedence for this because the US generally likes to hide our technology, right? Whereas a lot of times, like a smaller, more feisty country, they like to show off their best technology. The
they
US,
want to
we like to
flex,
sort of,
right?
yeah, the US, we like, it's that whole, like, we like to hide our best weapons. And then all of a sudden, when a war comes out, so like I think it was the U-2 spy plane is an
Okay.
example of that, where it was actually flying for over a decade before it was ever actually announced to the public. And there were conspiracy theorists online who said they thought they saw something like this, and there were little whispers and stories about it and stuff, but it was never actually officially announced until like 12 years later. And the same thing with a lot of the hypersonic jets were like that. I forget, it was like the Nighthawk, the F-117 Nighthawk or something. But basically, the U.S. has had a whole lot of technology that,
Yeah.
um, and they only admitted to having it once, like there was like a really clear picture of it or something, and they like, or like when they really couldn't deny it anymore. So even if, and that's kind of actually what I think the New Jersey drones probably are, is like our government testing advanced drone warfare for the evolution of drone warfare and future wars and things.
Well, I don't know if it was you that sent it to me or if I read it somewhere. They actually found out what they were.
Did they?
I forget it now. It started with an F anyway. Um,
Yeah.
they were doing some kind of testing with it apparently. Again, it could be fake.
Mhm.
I mean, it's on the internet. It's got to be true though, right?
Well, there's I mean, so I think when anything like that happens, right? Like you said, like with alien sightings, right? Like even if alien sightings are real, and say probably only 1% of the actual stories about them are real, right? Because
Mhm.
people have fantastic imaginations, and
It makes money
once,
too.
yeah, exactly, like you
Look at
said,
Area
and
51.
Mhm.
You know, it.
Yeah, and
You know,
and
it's America's best top secret base. If it was meant to, do you really think if that place was really meant to be top secret, that they would make it like a tourist destination for people to come here to see if they can see aliens?
yeah,
You know, like
maybe it was at one time, and then
yeah.
once it actually got exposed and became popular, they sort of drove the stuff somewhere else, or
Oh, I definitely think at one point in time, well before our time, that something
Mhm.
something happened there, or they stored something there. But as people got older and get out of whatever they did that they were doing, and kind of exposing stories, made it popular. Like, yeah, we got to get this out of here.
Well, there is this kind of interesting conspiracy theory out there that we got technology from aliens, and the the reasoning they use behind it is that like we made so many technological leaps in like the 50s and 60s, from like the jet engine to nuclear bombs, nuclear energy, like a lot of the really big inventions were like, and it seems like, I don't know if you notice this now, but like it seems like there haven't been any real big important inventions happening lately, right? Like your
Yeah.
iPhone comes out every year with some little silly update that a lot of times doesn't even actually make it that much better because they're just
No.
trying to sell a new product every year, right? But like, um, when was the last time that, like, say, a really good, and I'm not talking about research papers, like that,
Mm.
but when was the last time like a new energy was actually discovered? And we're always talking about nuclear fission, but we never get there, and it's always 20 years in the future, right? And but we've never got there. So that's, and like I said, I'm not agreeing with it, but it's just kind of an interesting theory that if we got technology from the aliens in like the 50s and 60s and reverse engineered it, that would explain why we're not as innovative now, because we never actually were, right? We just stole the technology from someone else and reverse engineered it. But it's just
No,
an
and a
interesting
funny
theory,
story too about,
Yeah.
the cell phones. I was talking to somebody one time, and the Android, how it's got that little green guy for
Yeah.
their so there's like, I'm telling you, there's aliens here, and they're just trying to prep the public. I'm telling you, look at the Android. He said it looks like a little green alien. He said that's where it's all coming from.
Yeah. I mean, nobody knows for sure, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't
No,
be such like a
it was
wild
just funny
topic.
how he said
Mhm.
it, but it's like, you know what, you probably have a point, and yourself, by studying and researching this stuff, that there's more and more every day or every other day or week, whatever,
Mhm.
information, studies, and research coming out about it. It's getting us ready. Like you said, will we actually ever see an alien? Maybe, maybe not. But have people seen them? 100%.
Yeah. And it's, if I had to take a guess, like I said, because nobody knows for sure about aliens. Otherwise, it wouldn't be such like a crazy thing to talk about, and there wouldn't be so much discussion around it. But if I had to take a guess, and like, what do I actually really believe in? I would say it's pretty likely that they are actually already here, right? Because
Oh God, yes.
and that they've been either watching us and helping to guide our technology, right? And I don't want to like offend religious people, but I'll always, if someone's kind of religious and I'm having a discussion with them, I'll just kind of throw out like an interesting thought idea, and I'll be like, so if aliens created life on Earth, how would that differ from a god, right? Or could you sort of consider it the same thing? And are the stories of, and like the, I don't know, I'm getting a little off on a tangent here, but
No, I'm listening, but I can only imagine where those conversations go when you open that can of worm up.
They go right down the rabbit hole, yeah, for sure.
No, I did just mean like arguments, and you're not meaning for them to be arguments. You're just legitimately asking a question. What's your theory on this, right?
Yeah, and generally I would say people who are not really religious, they'll entertain it. Sometimes people who are very, very religious, they get a little like they're like, and I get it because it's like they're like, no, like this is my God, dude. What are you talking about? And I'm like, all right, sorry, but
That's where philosophy kind of comes
mhm.
in.
But I can sort of talk to anybody. I think I have a lot of different kinds of friends, and I think I generally do a pretty good job of not offending people when it comes to stuff like that, and knowing where
It
the line is, and okay, I've
well,
just
but
mhm.
here's the thing, like that that's your thing, and like my thing is my thing. Like, you know what, you're just asking someone, well, this is what I think, and
Mhm.
you're entitled to that. So what
Yeah,
if it offends somebody? You're entitled
yeah,
to it. It's your opinion. It's
yeah,
just that
absolutely.
they've grown up where it's no, like I was told, this is what I have to do, this is how I have to study, this is what I got to believe in.
Hmm.
So I don't care about you. This is what you have to do because I was told I have to do this.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's I don't care anymore. I
Yeah,
mean, it's my
but it's
opinion, it's my thoughts. I've had guests on here where we debated things, and it's cool. Like whatever, it was just a conversation. Like, do I think you're wrong? No, but I'm giving my
mhm.
opinion on it too.
No, I sort of agree with you. I think that's how we learn things from each other is from discourse. And yeah, sometimes like conversations get a little uncomfortable or weird, but it's like, but that's how you learn. And if you don't get in that uncomfortable and weird position, that means that you're probably not like exposing yourself to enough different ideas and that you're generally probably hanging out with a lot of people who think the same as you and you're not like expanding your horizons super much. Or the people that you're around, you're afraid to talk about those things that you know that you differ
Because
in.
it's a trigger point for them, and it's gonna set them
Mhm.
off, right?
So let me
I,
ask you
I
something.
yeah.
Do people talk to each other about politics in Canada a lot? Because like it has just America, it used to kind of be like in the 90s, right? Like you didn't really tell people who you voted for. It was just sort of like I couldn't have told you. I didn't know who my parents voted for in the 90s, but it seems like now just people like wear it on their chest. And I'm just curious if that's
It's a thing up here now too. Like,
yeah.
but here's the thing: like events before, people were actually taking a picture of their voter's card of who they voted for before they put it in the box.
Hmm.
So I don't know if this is like this down the States, but it's against the law where I'm at. You're
Yeah.
not allowed to take a picture of who you vote for before you put it in the box. And
You can, but I think you can. You're allowed to. But I will say that the whole reason why, so early democracy days, right? Like in early days in America in the colonies, when you were voting for like whatever the leader of your colony, you would actually have to like stand up in front of everybody and you had to announce who you voted for. And what that led to was a lot of intimidation, a lot of people being hunted down and chased and being told, hey, you're not voting for this guy again, and things like that. So that's the whole reason why voting is supposed to be anonymous, right? So, like, say I was afraid to tell my friends who I want to vote for, I could technically I could run around and say I'm a huge fan of politician X all day and I could talk positively about them constantly and then just go vote for politician Y. And there's nothing illegal about that. I mean, yeah, you're lying to people, which maybe isn't. But, if you're doing it because you're like afraid of losing your job, I mean, I don't have like a moral issue with it, I guess. But
listen, we live in a messed up society, a messed up world now.
yeah,
The
for
bottom of the
sure.
line is it's messed up. We all have our part in making it messed up, whether it's buying into technology, whatever. Who cares who you vote for?
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, not that I say who cares, like it's your opinion, it's your choice, but who cares if you want to post it on social media that you voted for that? I think it's great.
Well,
That way
and
it's going to eliminate cheating too, right? I
yeah,
think it's
and I mean,
great.
it, honestly, if you talk to anybody, you will find out that almost every single person has some positions that maybe would be considered left, some positions that maybe would be considered right. Not everybody is just like this cookie cutter, and it's not that simple. And people
No.
generally pick the side that they feel most aligns with them. But just because they picked a different side doesn't mean that they don't still maybe align with you in 60 or 70% of areas, but maybe they just care a lot more about economy than some, like They just have like one or two things that they balance a lot more heavily in their decision making, and you have one or two things that you balance a lot more heavily. Does that make any of you bad people? And yeah, it's just
Exactly.
become so polarized lately. It's crazy. Yeah.
But I mean, up here to well, not just up here, it could be anywhere. Like, we were just talking about religions. Like, no, you can't think like that because this is how I was brought up and I was told
Hmm.
it's the same with religion or politics. I mean, you're your own person now.
Hmm.
You don't have to tell mom and dad who you're voting for because they're this color party, or if you want to vote for the other party, have at it. It's your business.
Hmm.
But what I recommend you doing is studying on both sides of the parties, like, X and Y, pros and cons of voting for them.
Yeah.
Don't just vote for somebody because your mom and dad or your aunt and uncle, brothers and sister are voting for them because maybe you don't see what they're doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Well, I
know our
mean,
guy up here is resigning, so we're
yeah,
going to have an election soon. Yeah,
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and
and I'm
if you
willing to
talk to,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So if you talk to most people in America, they'll tell you that like the two-party system sucks anyways, and like most people, almost any election, most people don't like either of the major candidates like that much, like. But yeah,
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, and here's the thing too, like, someone gets put in right away, they think they're going to promise everything they promise is going to happen overnight.
hmm,
Little do they realize they don't have as much say and authority in certain departments as what everyone thinks they do.
hmm,
And it's like, oh, he's no good because he never, funded our province or
yeah,
whatever. Well, no, it doesn't happen like that right away.
oh
There's
yeah,
a chain of,
yeah. The U.S. is very much like that, and it's like that on purpose. There's all these sets of checks and balances in place so that like for example, right now, it's one of the first times in like probably 20 years, I think, where one party controls the president, the House, and Congress. But that's very rare. Usually what'll happen is, and I've actually done this before, where I'll vote for left president, right congressman, so that way, because maybe you like the president sort of, but you don't trust him enough. So you want some balance, right? So you're like, let's get the other party in there so that these bills can't just go straight through Congress and the Senate, like without any sort of challenge. Um, so yeah,
it's
it's
kind of
very,
like that up here too. Like,
mhm,
you vote for party Y, but then you have your provincial parties. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So if
Yeah, it's
Y
this,
don't get in,
it's the same thing, like, because
yeah,
Wisconsin, the state that I live in, it's a notoriously purple state, we're a swing state. It's Milwaukee and Madison always vote completely blue, and then the rest of the state's very rural and it votes red. And it basically balances out like almost 50-50. And so we go back and forth left and right, and people will blame our governor because, like Tony Evers, he's a Democrat. He was one of our first Democratic governors we've had in a while. And a lot of people are like mad because he didn't legalize pot, and it's like, well, there's still like a lot of Republican leadership in the state that's against that. And then there's also a theory too that Wisconsin's a huge drinking state and that like the bar league doesn't want that to happen and things like that because we're surrounded by all legal states now and
yeah.
we're like on an island of dryness here. But yeah, it's kind of interesting.
I mean, it, like our marijuana's legal up here. Like, we can go to our liquor store and buy it, and um, I think it's better to do it that way.
Mhm.
It's I don't think it's a hardcore drug.
Yeah.
People say it's just a gateway for something stronger, and it may be so, but it
Yeah.
isn't drinking a beer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've heard of a lot of people who say tried a drug for the first time when they were really drunk. I mean, yeah, so and alcohol's legal, so it's
You know,
yeah, it's not any
okay, I
better.
drank a beer. Maybe I want to try whiskey.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to try rum.
Well, to be fair, they did actually try making alcohol illegal in the US and that didn't go too well.
Well, up here, I'll give you a funny story. So they legalized marijuana. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we got flavored alcohol up here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not allowed to buy flavored chewing tobacco,
Oh
flavored
yeah,
vape.
because that would be marketing to kids or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
but what about alcohol that they're paying someone to doing the same thing paying somebody to go into the store to buy them flavored alcohol.
Hmm. Yeah. It's the inconsistency of laws is interesting for sure.
It sends me, it drives me wild. It drives me wild how backwards it is,
Yeah,
you
that
know?
is fascinating for sure. So I'm interesting, I guess, since we we talked about the cold winter and we've talked about pot a little bit. So it makes me think about, do you do you think like more people in Canada probably suffer from depression than average because like the long winters, and I know Greenland is actually, I think Greenland is like the most highest kind of suicide, highest depression country in the world, and it's mostly because of the long winters, bad weather, isolation, low population, all that stuff.
So I don't think the winter helps.
Yeah,
It's just that we're so, I'm going to say, a crisis with housing, healthcare,
yeah,
um, jobs, people, I think, the cost of everything going up. I think they're more depressed over that than just from the winter blue.
yeah. And it almost seems like housing prices are worse in Canada. But
Oh
I know
God,
you
yes.
guys have weird mortgages, right? Isn't it like a 99-year mortgage or something? Or they're like really long mortgages or something?
Yeah, they're not that long, but they're fairly long. And like anyone young right now trying to do it, they can't. It's
Yeah,
impossible for
yeah,
anyone young that wants to leave home. And our rent here, like it's hard to explain. Like for a one bedroom, some places want like 2,000 a month.
yeah.
That
No,
that's
that's
a more
crazy. I
that's
mean,
more than a mortgage payment on some homes.
yeah, I live in Milwaukee, and I mean it's pretty reasonably priced, but even in the city is very expensive. But yeah, especially when you're talking about any of these big cities in the US, Nashville, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, it is beyond expensive. It's crazy. And like I'm very lucky that I got a mortgage before the interest rates went up and like when things
Yeah.
were still kind of affordable and before houses just like skyrocketed. And like you said, but I'm like, man, if I would have waited 4 or 5 more years to buy a house, I might not have been able to. It's crazy.
hmm
Yeah.
And if the tariffs take effect after 30 days, I think both sides of the border is really gonna.
I don't think they will.
You don't think they're gonna?
I mean,
What
they were
I don't think.
only,
I think it was just a scare tactic. Hey, tighten up your borders, get the fentanyl out of here.
I think it's, yeah. And I don't, like I said, I don't want to talk about politics too much and I'm not going to take a side here or there. But yeah, I think it was more of a like, whether you agree with it or not, Trump thinks that we're getting the crappy end of the stick on deals. And I think he just wants to force renegotiation and get better terms for us. Now, I think any leader of any country generally is going to try to do that and try to look out for the best interests of their country. So, you can't really be too angry about it, I guess. China does it too,
Yep.
you know.
And I mean,
So,
I know when our new guy gets voted in, because he is gonna win.
yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is gonna win. I think he's gonna try to do the same thing. It's time to renegotiate everything, and
Hmm.
like Trump's looking after his people, and it's time that our new guy, when he gets in, is gonna look after us, right?
Well, and it's unfortunate. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but yeah, I do think that you're seeing the world sort of shrink away from globalism in some ways because there were a lot of things that showed us that globalism provides a lot of really big challenges to a country when things go sideways. And I think COVID was a really big eye opener to a lot of countries for that,
Oh yeah.
where you had all these ships stuck at port and we
Mm-hmm.
never like, there was never a point in America where you just couldn't get things, right? Nobody was
Mm-hmm.
starving, but you would go places and like, yeah, like all the toilet paper would be wiped out. Or,
That was like up here.
yeah, or
Like
maybe
I
at
don't know
one
what the
store,
fascination with toilet paper was.
or, yeah,
Shelves were stocked good with food, but there was no
yeah,
toilet paper anywhere.
I almost went and bought a bidet. Okay, well, from a scientific perspective, I do find it kind of weird that we use soap and we scrub our entire body, and the dirtiest part of it, we just use paper. But
Listen, I have a bidet, so that's
nice.
why I laughed. Yeah,
I
I
should. I
love it.
don't get why they're not more popular in America. Nobody really has them.
Because I think because we were brought up, like as time changed, we were
Mhm.
brought up. That's what we have to use. There's no other way to do it. It's
Yeah.
embedded into our heads now.
Yeah. Big Charmin, big TP doesn't want that to change.
No, right? No, and then that I think that's Like up here,
Uh,
we got rid of plastic bags, so we went back to paper again.
mhm.
You know,
No, you're right though. Some things it just goes down to tradition. You're sitting there looking, trying to make sense of things, and it's like there is no sense. It's just we just do it because that's how it's always been done, and nobody's come around and changed it yet.
and I get it too. Um, they want to get rid of plastic and start using paper, but the paper's got to be a lot more stronger now. Like if a family's buying groceries because the bottom of the bags just let go, even paper straws, like two drinks out of a cup, it's ruined. And
Yeah, those paper straws are kind of terrible. They'll like start getting all soggy if say you got the drink out for 3 or 4 hours and you only
yeah,
drank half of it, and yeah.
hashtag do better.
Hmm.
Some
Yeah, the hills that like humans choose to fight sometimes is kind of interesting, right? Like, but
Mhm. Well, sometimes they just jump into things, and because one person said it's a great idea, I did my research. We should do this. Okay, do it. And
mm,
you know, did you really do good enough research? Like, I mean, I can go online too and look up stuff or read a book a scientist wrote 30 or 40 years ago. It
mm,
doesn't necessarily mean it's going to apply to today, and different things that we have is going to work with it. But
mm.
oh my, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Did you
that's
watch
funny.
on again? It was from one of the groups that there's an asteroid heading for us in
Mhm.
2030. Did you
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah, I did.
What's your
I think so. Going back to clickbait, I do see a lot of pages that really blow the anytime an asteroid's going to come somewhat close to us, you'll see this, it's going to hit us. But no, I think this one, according to NASA, does have like a 7%, like a low single digits percent chance of hitting us. Um, so, it's possible. And we do, I mean, pretty regularly, we do have, because we think we have most of the asteroids tracked in the solar system now, right? Like you can never know. And there's always rogue objects that can just come flying in and stuff. But for the most part, we think we have most of the larger asteroids tracked. Um, and so, yeah, we can't track the future of all their orbits perfectly, but we know that this one is going to come really close. And it's actually more common than people would think where an asteroid comes between us and the moon.
Well, that's what I was going to say to
Mhm.
you. Just I wonder how many actually come close to us without them even alerting the public. Because really, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well,
You know?
NASA actually successfully, they have what's called the DART program. And they actually launched a satellite into an asteroid and were able to successfully redirect it. The idea being that if we know or we're pretty sure an asteroid is going to hit us, if we have enough advanced warning, can we shoot something at it and just knock it out of orbit enough to fly by us instead of hitting us, right? So it's kind of like the idea from the movie Armageddon, only
Yeah,
instead of sending
that's what I
people,
think of every time I see
yeah,
the
yeah,
asteroid.
instead of sending people onto the asteroid to plant a nuke, you're just so they literally it was so cool and like it's this gray grainy video, but they had and it just took pictures like every second, so it's actually just like a stitched together slideshow of this satellite crashing into the asteroid, and it actually knocked it out of orbit. It was far more successful than like any scientist thought it was going to be. Now, the thing that scares me about that is, should we really be, I mean, how often should we be testing stuff like that, right? Do we want to be
Yeah, because
knocking
that was only one
asteroids in and
time,
out,
right?
changing asteroids' orbits way too much, and then all of a sudden we change it in the wrong way, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like that's the question is, and are they doing tests and just not letting the general public know that these
Hmm.
things are going on, or maybe we have one coming close to us tonight. We don't know, and maybe they're going to launch
Yeah.
this
Who knows?
satellite with because they
And
don't
there's
tell us
another
everything.
interesting thing. I mean, there's, obviously, like I said, there's asteroids that are, and comets and stuff that just do orbits in our solar system. But, one thing that I guess more people think about it now, but the way that we're taught in school, we're not really taught about how our solar system actually moves through the galaxy as well, right? And that our solar system is traveling through the galaxy, which has a bunch of stuff in it also. And do we have the whole galaxy map to the point where can we tell if we're actually going through a denser and I think we're in a less dense part of the galaxy now, and we're like on the edge of a spiral arm, but it's quite possible that like over very long periods of time that we move through denser and less dense parts of the galaxy, and that we could just run into like, so essentially our entire solar system would be going through like a debris field that
Mhm.
just is chilling out in the galaxy somewhere. And, it's crazy to think about because it's like, yeah, like we're not just orbiting the sun, but the sun is orbiting Sagittarius A, which is the supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy. And then our galaxy is moving towards Andromeda, and they're supposed to crash together in millions of years. And, everything is all moving. It's not just this simple image. So, I think rogue objects is one of the scariest things because like we would really not see something like that coming, and like what would we do if we all of a sudden just find out our whole solar system is about to move through a debris field? Like, could we even do anything? Probably not.
I don't think like now.
Hmm.
Like I said, if we're just right now trying to figure out how to move something that could potentially hit us, you know what I mean? I don't think we're that far advanced in
Yeah.
technology. Like I was watching something the other day, trying to launch a satellite into the center of the sun.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Did you hear about that or anything?
I did see that the first man-made object ever actually did reach inside of like the atmosphere of the sun or like the halo of it. It didn't actually
Oh,
hit it.
really?
I forget what it's called. What is it?
I said if they're gonna do that, then make sure they do it in the night when.
Oh, there's three layers: the photosphere, the chromosphere, and the corona. So I think it went through the corona, maybe. But yeah, so didn't touch it, but I mean, pretty dang close. It was like I think it's like inside of where you would normally see solar winds and flares and stuff like that. So it was really close.
I- and it's crazy how like SpaceX and everything, how like their technology. I remember when the satellite first flew over, it's like a string of 17 satellites. I wonder how
Yeah.
many people actually thought that they were UFOs, right?
Yeah, it's cool that you know about that, but yeah, you can try it. You can trace those Starlink satellites online, and you can find out when they're gonna be going over the sky. And yeah, it is the craziest thing. It's like if you didn't
Oh,
know
it's
what it
it's
was, you would
impressive
be
for sure. But
yeah. If you
like to
didn't
the
know what it
average
was, you
person
would
that
be
don't
like,
know
oh
what
my
it
god.
is, yeah,
Hmm.
they're on Facebook or wherever it is. They're like, this is just flying over me and blah blah blah. The end is near, and
Yeah. Have you ever seen a
yeah,
shooting star before?
I have.
Those are so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they are pretty cool.
And those are just little tiny meteoroids burning up that aren't big enough to really do anything. They burn up or they maybe land on the earth as a pebble or something like that. But
No,
there's actually a really funny Simpsons episode about that from the very early seasons where, they thought that the whole world was going to get destroyed by an asteroid and everybody was like, cults formed, right? And the whole town is just like
well, be
losing their
careful because the
stuff.
Simpsons pretty much predicted the future.
Hmm. And then, and everybody's freaking out and they're looking, they see this big fireball in the sky. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then like a little pebble drops next to someone's foot. And they're like,
Yeah, I saw that episode.
yeah. And everybody had like cheated on their wives and ruined their families and stuff, and
Families
it's
and
like, oh crap, we
everything.
have to
Yeah,
like live
rack
life
your
again
bills
now.
up and no, no. I just think it's cool that even like SpaceX, what they're doing, like
Mhm.
I think they're
It's
going to
insane.
eventually decide something to send somebody, a human, to Mars.
Yeah, it's crazy that they really just like surpassed NASA so quickly and that NASA actually uses them. And I was like, what we were talking about with toilet paper. Like, why did no one ever think about making a reusable rocket that you can just land? Like,
Mhm.
and I love NASA, don't get me wrong, but man, they've been operating for how long? And they were never like, hey, this is really expensive. We could save so much money if we can actually reuse at least the shell of this thing. I mean, I think even with those SpaceX rockets, there's a lot of parts that have to be replaced in between every flight because there's
Oh,
so much
absolutely.
stress and heat and things that are going on. But if you can reuse most of it, that's awesome, right? And how did no one ever think about that?
I don't, I think it's. I can't wait to see what they're going to do because I know they're going to come out with some amazing stuff and like even the videos that we're going to be able to see and when
Mhm.
people do land, it's going to be
Now,
definitely something for history when they do land on Mars because it is going to happen.
yeah, and my theory about so I'm doing like a 5 or 6 on part 5 right now of like this Martian geography series, and what, like the second or third episode, I made a small comment about how Elon Musk mentioned that he wanted to nuke the poles. And like I got a lot of comments about it. So I was like, so then I made a whole episode about whether or not it's actually a smart idea to try to nuke the poles to terraform Mars. And so basically for like 4 or 5 months on and off, I've really been reading a lot about Mars. And me, as well as a lot of other people out there, a lot of people who are way smarter than me, um, really think that like you should probably start on the moon first because it's so much closer to us by like leaps and bounds. It's way, way closer to us. And then the moon has like almost no atmosphere and super low gravity. So if you could set up some sort of like a staging base on the moon, it would actually be way cheaper to launch rockets from the moon than it is from Earth, right? Because the escape velocity required to leave the moon is very low. Um, so literally you could use like, I think like 1/6 of the rocket fuel or something to launch a rocket from the moon compared to Earth. Or you could have like 6 times the weight or payload in it. Um, and then you start there. And then at the same time, then you get to also play around with your habitats and like your dome habitats and things like that, and actually experiment what an outer space colony is like, what the isolation does to people and all of that stuff. Um, we've done small experiments here with it on Earth where we lock scientists into domes for like a year. There was a really famous experiment where they did that. Um, but yeah, it's like, because if things go wrong on Mars, it is so far away, man. Like if something goes bad there, it's
Yeah,
so far
it's not a
away.
couple day trip, right? Like it's
Yeah. And then not only that, but it's like, if we can't at least make some sort of like bubble colony on the moon, there's absolutely no way we're going to be able to do it on Mars. Like, so besides the fact that it's like a great staging ground, you can actually like I said, it's cheaper, but not only that, you're also then sort of doing like a practice run for Mars, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
No, absolutely. Well, I
And by
mean,
the way, I don't think nuking the poles is probably a smart idea, but
no, no, and I'm gonna have to look into that research with the scientists being locked up in a bubble for a year. That sounds pretty cool.
yeah, they made a really silly movie about it called Biodome,
Okay.
where Pauly Shore and his friend accidentally got in and locked in with these actual scientists and they mess up the whole experiment. That's not how it actually happened, but yeah, it was really interesting though. So, they locked all these people in a colony and they essentially all kind of started forming like these little cliques. I think they formed out of like the 8 of them, they formed into like 2 groups, and things got like very contentious and weird with them all, because they're isolated and they had to, I want to say, I don't remember if they had to eat all their own food there and stuff, but yeah, it was interesting. I would definitely recommend looking it up. I should maybe make a video about that. That'd be fun.
Yeah. No. Well, I want to thank you for popping on and giving us some time. It's been awesome.
All right. Yeah, it was great to meet you. Oh yeah, it's already been an hour. Hey.
Yeah, crazy how time flies.
Yeah. Well, I talk a lot, so it's easy.